I called a detective after HOA security said my packages vanished. Karen backpedaled on camera. The night everything snapped, I was standing in front of the HOA meeting room projector, holding a thin black folder. On the screen behind me was a frozen frame from the HOA's own security camera. A uniformed guard lifting my package out of the locker and walking it straight into the staff-only hallway. Marla Whitaker, our HOA president and self-appointed security liaison, was smiling that tight, country club smile. 20 neighbors watched her like she was the queen of the neighborhood. "Elena," she said into the mic, voice dripping sugar, "as we've explained, security does not handle packages. If yours keep vanishing, that's a you problem." I didn't raise my voice. I just slid a printed timeline onto the table in front of her, timestamps, gate logs, tracking numbers.
"Great," I said.
"Then you won't mind confirming that on the record. Because this," I tapped the remote, "is from your camera on the night my missing prescription was never touched by security." The video started to play. Her smile actually flickered. "If you think HOA security can't get caught stealing with their own cameras, stay with me. And since I'm about to show you exactly how I turned their rules against them, make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss what comes next." Because what Marla didn't know, standing under that projector glow, was that I was a compliance analyst by trade, and I was already 3 steps ahead. I didn't move into a gated community to start a war over cardboard boxes. When my husband and I first toured the place, it looked like every remote worker's dream version of suburbia outside Austin. Wide, clean streets, identical stone facades, tiny dog parks on every corner. Every house had at least one Ring camera. Every driveway had an SUV that looked fresh off the lot. The sales rep kept saying secure and orderly like it was a mantra. I work from home as a compliance analyst for a big tech-adjacent company. My day job is literally tracing where things go, who touched them, and what policy says about it. I live in timelines, chain of custody forms, and audit trails. So a secure, organized community with professional security sounded honestly kind of perfect. Quiet enough to focus, safe enough that my mom would stop sending me links about porch pirates. Our first few months were normal. I set up my little home office facing the street. Packages showed up. I signed when needed. Nobody said a word if a box sat by the door for a couple hours. My prescriptions arrived on schedule. My work equipment came in without a hitch. The guards at the gate waved me in, scanned my barcode sticker, and that was that. I knew there was a HOA, obviously. You can't throw a rock in Texas without hitting one. But at first, they were just email signatures. Board notice. Pool hours. Upcoming social. I'd see the name, Marla Whitaker, President and Security Liaison, at the bottom of every message, like a watermark. I pictured some bored retiree who liked newsletters. Then I went to my first HOA meeting. It was in the clubhouse, with the bad fluorescent lighting and folding chairs that make everyone look slightly washed out. Marla ran the room like it was her personal TED Talk. Perfect blowout, expensive-looking athleisure, a tablet on a little stand in front of her so she could scroll through agenda items. She said, "My security team 3 times in the first 10 minutes. I sat in the back, next to an older guy in a faded Longhorns hoodie. During a lull, he leaned over and whispered, "Watch her and the security contract. She treats those guards like her private army." I smiled politely, but I filed it away. You don't work in compliance without getting very good at listening when someone tells you where the bodies are buried. Still, for a while, life was fine. I walked my dog in the evenings and waved at neighbors. Half of them loved talking about how safe it felt here, how Marla had cleaned up the place from the last board. The other half rolled their eyes when her name came up, called her the Queen or the Sheriff. But the tension was just background noise to me. What I wanted was simple, a quiet place to work, a front porch that didn't feel like a drop zone in a war movie, and packages that made it from the delivery truck to my hands. For a few months, it felt like we'd actually found that. Until the first little friendly reminder from the HOA showed up in my inbox. And that's when I realized just how much power Marla thought she had over everyone inside those gates. The friendly reminder from the HOA was about cardboard. Subject line: Package policy clarification. No, hi. No, thanks for being a neighbor. Just a PDF attachment and this line in the body. We have noticed a pattern of improper use of delivery services at your address. Please review the attached policy to avoid fines. Improper use. Like I'd been abusing Amazon. I opened the PDF. It was 3 pages of dense text with Marla's name at the bottom. No doorstep deliveries. All carriers must use the central locker at the clubhouse or leave items with authorized security staff. Residents who encourage door deliveries could be cited for noncompliance. Which was funny because every delivery I'd had so far had been at my door. I scrolled to the footer. Revised policy effective immediately. Approved by Board 7-0. Dated 3 days earlier. No prior notice. I was still rereading it when my phone pinged. Your package has been delivered. It was my monthly prescription, auto refill, signature required. I walked to the front door. Empty porch. I checked the ring footage. UPS guy walking up at 2:11 p.m., holding a small white box. He looked down at his scanner, frowned, then turned around and walked back to his truck with the package still in his hand. No delivery. But the app said delivered, front door. So I called the building number listed on the new policy. Security, a bored male voice answered. Hey, I said, keeping my tone light. This is Elena at 34B. UPS just marked my prescription as delivered, but it's not at my door. Did they maybe leave it with you at the clubhouse? We don't handle packages, he said automatically. I could hear a TV in the background. I glanced at the policy on my screen. The new PDF from the HOA says, authorized security staff may receive items. I just wanted to check before I file a report with UPS. He paused. Yeah, that's more like if they drop it here. But we don't sign for stuff. If it says delivered, it's probably on your porch or they took it back. It's not on my porch, I said. And my camera shows him leaving with it. Then it's a UPS problem, he said, tone sharpening. We don't touch your packages. That's in the policy. Not quite. But arguing with a TV in the background guard wasn't going to change anything. Okay, I said. Thanks for clarifying. I hung up, opened my laptop, and pulled up my USPS informed delivery dashboard out of habit. I'd added UPS and FedEx email alerts too. Everything looked normal. But that word from the email clung to me. Pattern. What pattern? I opened my email again. At the bottom of the friendly reminder was a line I'd skimmed before. Security has reported repeated carrier violations at your address and potential package abandonment. Security has reported. I clicked reply, fingers already moving like they do at work. Hi, Marla. Thank you for the clarification. For my records, could you please provide 1. The effective date of the previous package policy, 2. Copies of any incident reports security has filed regarding my address, and 3. The specific section that outlines who is responsible for custody of packages once they enter the community. Great if you can confirm in writing whether security is authorized to receive or handle packages. Best. Elena. I reread it. Polite. Precise. Every sentence a hook. I hit send. An hour later, UPS support told me the driver had left the package with a person at location. No name. Just a checkmark. The system logged it at 2:16 p.m. 5 minutes after he'd walked away from my porch. So someone, somewhere inside our secure gated community, had my medication. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the policy email and the guard's voice. Improper use.
Pattern.
We don't touch your packages. At that point, I thought it was just miscommunication and an overzealous HOA president. I had no idea that missing little white box was only the first breadcrumb. If you've ever had a HOA blame you for something you know you didn't do, hit the like button because this policy clarification was just their opening move. 2 days after that first friendly reminder, the social temperature of the neighborhood dropped 5 degrees around me. It started on the community Facebook group. I was making coffee when my phone buzzed with a notification. Admin posted in Lakeside Preserve Neighbors. I tapped it open. A long post from Marla, of course. No names, but it didn't have to. Neighbors, it began. We've had an increase in package-related claims from a small number of residents. Please remember, our security team is excellent. If you choose not to follow our package policies and then can't find your deliveries, that's not on the HOA. We will not tolerate attempts to defraud carriers or our community. The comments rolled in. So tired of people trying to scam Amazon refunds. Marla, thank you for keeping us safe from porch pirates and fraudsters. One woman added, if you can't manage your deliveries, maybe this isn't the right neighborhood. With a little eye roll emoji, I scrolled, jaw tight, until I hit a reply from my next-door neighbor, Jenna. Is this about 34B? Because UPS has messed up our street a bunch. Marla answered within a minute. We don't discuss specific addresses publicly, but security has documented a pattern in that area. That area. My phone pinged again, this time an email. Subject: Notice of Delivery Misuse. First offense. It was on HOA letterhead, attached as a PDF. Our records indicate multiple instances of carriers being instructed to bypass community package procedures at your address. This creates security and liability risks for all residents. Continued noncompliance may result in fines and/or suspension of gate access privileges. Suspension of gate access. For asking where my prescription went. At the bottom. If you believe this notice was sent in error, please contact the board in writing. Verbal disputes with security or board volunteers will not be entertained. Signed, of course, President and Security Liaison, Lakeside Preserve HOA. I hadn't raised my voice to a single person, but in writing, I was suddenly a problem. That afternoon, I walked my dog past the clubhouse. 2 guards stood by the golf cart, talking. One of them, the same voice from the phone, looked right at me, then said something low to his partner. They both smirked. At the mail kiosk, an older woman I'd chatted with before pretended not to see me. A dad I'd waved to for months gave me the tight, polite smile reserved for strangers. The shift was so sudden it felt orchestrated. That night, Jenna knocked on my door, eyes wide. Hey, are you okay? I'm fine, I said slowly.
Why?
She held up her phone. Someone told my husband you were under investigation for package fraud? By the HOA? I almost laughed. Investigation? They lost my meds and sent me a PDF. She bit her lip. Marla's been posting a lot about bad actors abusing delivery services. She didn't say your name, but people talk.
Of course they did.
Marla didn't need to say my name. She'd drawn a target around my house and handed out gossip as ammunition. Look, Jenna said quietly, I don't believe you'd do that. But you should know, Marla told a few people that security has video proving they never touched your stuff.
Video.
Interesting. Did she now?
I asked.
Jenna nodded. And she said you were harassing volunteers with legal-sounding emails. Her words. I thanked her, closed the door, and stood in my hallway, the pieces clicking together. They weren't just denying there was a problem. They were building a narrative where I was the problem, irresponsible with deliveries, maybe dishonest, definitely difficult. If I pushed harder, they could dismiss me as the crazy woman obsessed with boxes. The thing about my job is I live in systems where narratives don't matter. Only evidence does. I opened my laptop, pulled up a fresh spreadsheet, and titled it, Lakeside Package Incidents, Park Residents. Every email, every notification, every vague accusation was going to go somewhere concrete. And so was every little social dig, no matter how petty it looked. Because while Marla was busy weaponizing gossip, I was quietly building something she couldn't outsmile or outpost, a paper trail. They thought the group chats and official notices were putting me in my place. But the HOA still hadn't realized that every Facebook post, every PDF, every snide little comment was sliding straight into a folder with their name on it. The first hit to my wallet came disguised as standard procedure. About a week after that Facebook smear campaign, I got a certified letter notice in my mailbox. Certified, like I was being served. I signed for it at the post office, opened it in the parking lot, and just stared. Notice of fine, delivery misuse, second offense. $250. The letter claimed I had continued to instruct carriers to deliver directly to my door in violation of policy, and that I had refused to cooperate with security. It listed 3 tracking numbers, one of them the missing prescription, the others random orders that had actually arrived just fine. At the bottom, failure to remit payment within 15 days may result in suspension of gate access and referral to collections. Signed, again by Marla. Gate access. Over imaginary offenses they'd invented to cover their own screw-ups. I pulled up the tracking numbers on my phone. 2 showed delivered, locker, with an alphanumeric code. The prescription still showed delivered, front door, but now the UPS notes section read, per property instructions. Per property instructions. I forwarded the fine notice to my husband with one line. They're escalating. Then I sat at my kitchen table, spread the papers out, and did the thing I always do when something feels off. I started matching data. Dates, times, descriptions. The offense dates didn't match the days I'd actually had issues. One fine entry was for a day I'd been out of town and had paused all deliveries. Another accused me of refusing to retrieve items from locker within 24 hours, even though there was no locker pickup code in any email from that week. They weren't just wrong. They were fabricating a record. That night, I went to the gate instead of using my windshield barcode. I parked, walked up to the little window, and smiled at the guard on duty. Not the TV guy, another one younger, nervous. Hey, I said. Quick question. When a package comes in for 34B, what do you guys actually do? He blinked. Lockers or front desk. Depends what the carrier does. Do you sign for them? Sometimes. If they ask, we have a log. He pointed vaguely to a clipboard behind him. A log, I repeated. For every package you receive?
Yeah, well.
We're supposed to. I nodded.
Great.
Thanks. I walked back to my car, already drafting an email in my head. That weekend, another package vanished. This time it was a pair of noise-canceling headphones my company had shipped for work. High dollar, insured, signature required. I watched the tracking like a hawk. Saturday, 10:39 a.m. Out for delivery. 11:12 a.m. Delivered, front desk/reception. I check my porch, nothing. Locker notification, nothing. Email from the HOA, nothing. I pulled up our ring. The only thing between 11:05 and 11:20 was a golf cart from security puttering past. I called the number in the policy again. Different guard, same script. We don't handle packages. Talk to the carrier. When I mentioned the tracking said front desk/reception, he got defensive fast. Ma'am, we are not a mailroom. If UPS says that, that's on them. Got it, I said calmly. So, I can note that security is not authorized to accept any deliveries on behalf of residents? He hesitated. We can if needed, but we didn't touch yours. Perfect, I said. Could you put that in writing for me? An email is fine. Silence. Ma'am, we're not allowed to. Totally understand. I cut in. I'll just copy what you said and send it to Marla to confirm. I hung up before he could backpedal. Then I sat down and wrote the most boring, lethal email of my life. Dear Board, I am in receipt of the enclosed notice of fine, #2023-19 regarding alleged delivery misuse. Before I respond substantively, I request the following documentation. 1. Copies of any and all incident reports filed by security regarding deliveries to my address. 2. Copies of the package log maintained at the front gate for the dates in question. 3. Clarification, in writing, whether security staff are authorized to accept custody of packages for residents, and if so, what procedures govern chain of custody. Please also specify which section of the CC and RS empowers the HOA to fine residents for carrier routing decisions outside of our control. Best. Elena Park, 34B. No accusations. No threats. Just requests that any legitimate operation should be able to answer in its sleep. I CC'd myself, BCC'd a personal archive address, and dropped the letter about the missing headphones to UPS claims. Their rep, unlike the guards, was very clear. We left it with your property's security. Signed M. Alvarez. I flipped back to my spreadsheet and added a new column. Carrier note / who signed. Then another. HOA position. Under that, I typed, for all caps clarity, "We don't handle packages." I printed the fine notice, highlighted every factual error, and slid it into the thin black folder that was starting to feel like a case file. By then, it was obvious they weren't going to stop at passive-aggressive emails. They were comfortable taking my money, smearing my name, and holding my gate access hostage over lies. That was the moment it clicked. This wasn't incompetence anymore. It was a system. A system that assumed residents would be too scared, too confused, or too disorganized to fight back. They were wrong. Because while they were busy inventing offenses, I was quietly assembling something much scarier than an angry Facebook comment, a clean, chronological record that any outside investigator could follow in 10 minutes. It was that night, staring at my growing folder, that I realized, if I didn't push back now, they'd keep doing this to me, and to whoever came after me. I didn't know it yet, but I was one phone call away from bringing in someone whose entire job was following trails exactly like this. If you've ever had a HOA try to fine you into silence, drop a comment below, because this was the day I decided the paper trail was going to lead somewhere they really wouldn't like. By Monday morning, that thin black folder on my table looked a lot like the beginning of an audit file, which conveniently is exactly what I get paid to build. At work, they call me a compliance analyst. On paper, that means I make sure big, shiny tech projects don't get our company sued. In reality, it means I live in the space where people lie, systems glitch, and the only thing that matters is what you can prove. I don't carry a gun. I carry timelines. So when the HOA started inventing offenses and that $250 fine landed, something in my brain just clicked over. This wasn't my neighbors being mean anymore. This was a bad internal control with a paper trail begging to be followed. I pulled my work laptop off its stand, opened a fresh document, and titled it like I would any internal case, Lakeside HOA, Package Handling/Incident Review. Under that, I dropped in my spreadsheet as Exhibit A. Then I did something Marla absolutely did not expect. I opened our community portal and downloaded every governing document they'd ever uploaded. CC and RS, bylaws, security addendum, vendor policy, even the boring annual budget PDFs nobody reads. I read all of it. It took a couple hours, 2 cups of coffee, and one increasingly annoyed cat on my keyboard, but the pattern started to pop. There was an entire section about amenity keys and pool bracelets. A full page about font size on yard sale signs. But packages? One vague paragraph about secure delivery locations as determined by board, and an attachment labeled Security Contract, redacted. Redacted. For an HOA. I scrolled through anyway. Most of the vendor details were blacked out, but one clause survived the highlighter massacre. Contractor will maintain written incident reports for all security-related events, including but not limited to theft, vandalism, and suspicious activity, and will provide such reports to client upon request. Incident reports. Required. In writing. I flipped back to my inbox. Not a single incident report attached to any of Marla's scolding PDFs. Not even a reference number. That was the moment the whole thing shifted in my head. I wasn't just some resident begging for my headphones back. I was a stakeholder requesting contractually mandated documentation.
Different game.
I drafted another email, this one addressed to Marla and the full board, subject line in all caps like I do when something will end up as evidence. Formal document request, security incident reports. I quoted their own contract clause, line, and verse. Then I asked, again, for any and all written incident reports related to packages addressed to 34B or logged as delivered to the Lakeside Preserve Security Desk/Locker System on the following dates, followed by my meticulously bullet-pointed list. I closed with my favorite sentence in the English language. If none exist, please confirm that in writing. I hit send and sat back. At work, that kind of email usually triggers 2 reactions, panic or compliance. Here, it got me something else entirely. 10 minutes later, a reply popped up, not from Marla, but from the generic HOA Gmail. No greeting. No signature, just, your request is excessive. The board is made up of volunteers. Please stop harassing us and security. We have already explained that no one here handles your packages. No denial about the reports. No claim they existed. Just that word again. Harassing. I read it twice, then smiled. At my job, we have a saying. When someone refuses to answer the question you actually asked, that answer is its own data point. Up until that moment, I'd assumed this would be a clean internal fix, policy clarification, maybe a refund, definitely some embarrassment for Marla. But staring at that email, at the redacted contract, at the fines built on phantom offenses, I realized something important. I was too close to this. At work, I'm the one they call in when a project team has made a mess but can't see it because they're standing in the middle of it. Here, I was the one in the mess. I needed another set of eyes, someone trained to follow exactly the kind of trail I was building, but who didn't live behind that gate. Not a lawyer.
Not yet.
Someone who understands that we don't touch packages is a claim you can test. So I opened a browser tab and typed 4 words I never thought I'd Google for my own life. Private investigator package theft Austin. Listings popped up, cheesy, serious, everything in between. One stood out, a small firm run by a former police detective who specialized in delivery fraud, employee theft, and internal loss investigations. Her site had a whole section on chain of custody and video evidence. I clicked contact and filled out the form. Brief description of issue? It asked. I wrote, gated community. HOA says security doesn't handle packages. Carriers say security signs for them. HOA is now fining me for delivery misuse while my items go missing. I have logs, emails, and partial contract docs. Need independent verification and advice on documenting further. I hit submit before I could overthink it. 20 minutes later, my phone rang from an unknown Austin number. This is Elena, I answered. Hi, Elena, a calm, low voice said. This is Detective Morales. I got your intake. Sounds like you have a HOA problem with a side of property disappearance. I let out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding. That's one way to put it. Do you have your documentation handy? She asked. Timeline, tracking, any policy documents? I actually laughed. I have a folder. Good, she said, and I could hear the faint smile. Because from what you wrote, you're already doing half my job. What you need now is to make sure their story can't survive contact with their own systems. I glanced at my printer, at the growing stack of highlighted PDFs, and my spreadsheet with its neat little timestamps. For the first time since this started, I felt the balance of power tilt a few degrees in my direction. Because up until now, I'd just been reacting to Marla's policies and fines. But talking to Morales, with my own case file open in front of me, it finally hit me. This wasn't just a neighbor dispute. This was an investigation. And, as of that phone call, I wasn't the only one running it. Tell me everything, from the first friendly reminder email, Morales said. Then we'll talk about how to use their rules and their cameras against them. Naquili memento, eu parai de rieger. E comissia planger, a final. Eu tinha ao meu favor a nosta experiencia que els nem imaginavam. Morales didn't waste time. The next evening, she was at my dining table with a small black notebook, a laptop, and a calm that made my own pulse slow down. Walk me through it like I'm your auditor, she said. Assume I know nothing except what's on paper. That I could do. I laid everything out between us. The fine notices, my spreadsheet, printouts of tracking pages with time circled, screenshots of Marla's Facebook posts, the we don't handle packages emails. Morales skimmed, occasionally tapping her pen when something didn't add up. When they say, we don't touch your packages, she murmured, but the carrier says, left with security, and there's a signature. That's a discrepancy. Discrepancies are where cases live. She asked about cameras. I pulled up the HOA map from the portal, those cheesy little icons showing coverage at the gate, the clubhouse, the locker area. No cameras in the staff hallway? She asked. Not on this map. Her eyebrows lifted. So, a gap. Good to know. We logged into my Ring account on her laptop. She watched the UPS guy approach with my prescription, then leave with it still in his hand. Okay, she said. From his angle, he's following property instructions. Question is, whose instructions? I opened my spreadsheet and scrolled. She leaned closer. eyes scanning my columns. You built this yourself?
Yeah.
Have it. She actually smiled. You have no idea how many people show up with I think and I feel instead of this. You're doing my job for me. What you need now is corroboration from systems you don't control. We added new columns together. Camera requested, Y/N, HOA response, carrier confirmation, security log. For each incident, we filled in what I had, and more importantly, what was missing. The holes lined up in unnerving little verticals. Same time window, same type of item, same "we don't handle packages" line, Morales said. Patterns there. But to make this bulletproof, we need 2 more layers: their logs and their behavior when they think no one's watching. I told her about the redacted security contract. She nodded slowly. Incident reports required, but they claim none exist, she said. Either the vendor's violating their contract, or the board's hiding reports. Either way, that's leverage. Then she asked the question that changed everything. How badly do you want this to stick? Badly enough that they stop doing it to the next person, I said. And badly enough that when they call me a liar, there's a third party who can say I'm not. Then we build this like a criminal case, she said. Chain of custody. Independent verification. And we give them enough rope to pull the noose tight themselves. Her plan was deceptively simple. First, we documented every interaction going forward as if it would end up in court. No more casual phone calls. Everything by email, with clear questions they'd have to dodge in writing. Second, we requested access to footage the right way. Not a panicked "show me the tape," but a formal preservation request. Date, time window, camera IDs, reason. If they refused or lost it, that refusal became evidence too. Third, we'd run a controlled delivery. Something trackable, insured, and boring enough not to scream. Sting operation. Morales had contacts at a local shipping store who could help us plant a unique identifier inside the box. Nothing illegal, just a tiny GPS tag that would ping when it moved. You're serious, I said. She shrugged. You're already being treated like a suspect. Might as well investigate the way they should have. We spent an hour drafting emails that looked, to anyone on the outside, like the world's politest resident just seeking clarification. I requested confirmation of camera retention periods. I asked who the designated custodian of records was for security footage. I repeated my question about incident reports and added one more sentence Morales dictated. Please preserve all records, including but not limited to video, logs, and internal communications related to package handling for address 30, 4B going forward. I hit send, BCC'd Morales on all of it, and printed hard copies for the folder. Then we dug into the HOA portal's event calendar. Upcoming line item: board meeting, security, and budget review. That's our stage, Morales said. They'll be talking about security already. You won't have to force the topic. Marla hates being interrupted, I warned.
Good, she said.
Let her. The more she talks, the more material we get. Over the next week, I became annoyingly, flawlessly compliant. I followed the package policy PDF like it was scripture. Every online order note said, per HOA policy, please deliver to community locker/front desk. I screenshotted each instruction. When carriers sent me delivery alerts, I cross-checked times with gate logs that Morales had coaxed out of a sympathetic former guard she knew from her police days. Every mismatch went into the spreadsheet. Every "we don't have that" reply from the HOA went into the folder. Morales visited twice more, each time with some new piece: a copy of the security company's business filing, notes from a quiet conversation she'd had with a UPS regional supervisor, an email from the shipping store confirming our test package was ready whenever we were. Almost there, she said, tapping the folder one night. We've mapped their procedures. We've mapped where the paper trail conveniently doesn't exist. Now we just need them to do what they always do one more time on a day we control. I looked at the calendar. The board meeting was 10 days away. Plenty of time, Morales said. We'll give them another chance to insist they never touch your packages. All we need now is the perfect delivery for them to not touch. I nodded, feeling that familiar click of a plan reaching its final phase. I'd spent weeks being gaslit by policy PDFs and condescending emails. Now, with Morales helping me stitch every timestamp, log entry, and refusal together, the story wasn't theirs anymore. We had the trail. We had the holes. We just needed one more breadcrumb to land exactly where we could see it. Only one thing left: set the bait in a way that forced Marla's precious security to walk straight into our chain of custody. If you've stuck with me this far, make sure you're subscribed, because the way we set that trap made the HOA think they were finally putting me in my place when really, they were stepping right into their own evidence file. The perfect delivery ended up being the least exciting thing I've ever ordered: a mid-range Bluetooth speaker from a local electronics shop that worked with Morales' shipping contact. "This isn't about what's in the box," she reminded me. "It's about where the box goes and who touches it." Her contact packed it in a plain brown carton, no brand names, no logos. Inside, taped beneath the molded cardboard, was a tiny legal GPS tag that pinged its location every 30 seconds. On the outer label in bold, "Signature required." In the delivery notes, per my now flawless habit, "Per HOA policy, deliver to community locker/front desk. Do not leave at door." We scheduled it for the afternoon before the board's security and budget review meeting. "Gives them just enough time to mishandle it," Morales said, "and not enough time to quietly fix anything before the meeting." The morning of, I did my part as the world's most obedient resident. I forwarded the order confirmation to the HOA email. "Hi, per package policy, just confirming a carrier will be delivering a signature-required item today and is instructed to use the locker/front desk. Please ensure security is aware. Best, Elena." No reply. At 1:03 p.m., my phone buzzed. Out for delivery. Morales was parked legally on the public street just outside the gate, laptop open, GPS tracker dashboard up. "You'll stay home," she'd said. "No one can say you lurked around, harassing security." So I sat at my desk, ring feed open in one tab, carrier tracking in another, community portal camera map in the back of my mind like a blueprint. 1:27 p.m. Delivered. Front desk/reception. My porch? Empty. I texted Morales. "Just marked delivered to front desk." She called immediately. "Got the ping. Your front desk just moved." On her screen, the GPS had appeared at the clubhouse coordinates, then less than a minute later, started walking, slow, regular pings, away from the locker area and toward the back of the building. Not to the mailroom. Not to the resident lounge. Straight into the staff-only corridor. "Stay put," she said. I'm grabbing stills from the external cams. Here's the thing about those "we don't touch packages" claims. They're only as good as the blind spots. And Morales knew exactly where those were. She'd already mapped which HOA cameras covered the driveway where delivery vans usually stopped, the front door of the clubhouse, the hallway to the locker area, and the side door marked staff only. With a little polite pressure on the shipping store, we also knew the driver's route and approximate drop-off window. Within an hour, she had what we needed. "Your UPS guy," she said back at my table, did exactly what the label said. Walked in, set the box on the front desk, scanned it, left. She tapped her laptop. "Your HOA kept that footage. It's on their public-facing camera loop. Anyone with portal access can see it." She clicked ahead. A uniformed security guard entered frame 5 minutes later. Same one I'd heard on the phone weeks earlier. He looks at the box, checks the label, picks it up, walks it down the hall toward the staff door. She advanced another feed. Different camera, staff entrance. He goes through that door. The GPS follows him. We watched the screen show the little green dot stop moving dead center in a part of the building that, per the map, had no cameras at all. "Where does it stay?" I asked. She glanced at the timestamp. "Until after his shift change. Then it walks to the rear parking lot, out the employee exit. Stops in the far corner of the lot for a bit, then starts heading toward the subdivision across the main road." Morales leaned back. "Your We Don't Touch Packages security team walked a GPS-tagged box out of the clubhouse and off property within 2 hours of delivery. All after you'd emailed ahead, on the record, asking them to follow their own policy." I felt something between anger and relief settle in my chest. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't imagining patterns. The system was doing exactly what it was designed, badly, to do. Now what? I asked. Now, she said, closing the laptop, we give them one more chance to lock in their story. In public. On video. Ideally, with you asking all the right innocent questions. The board meeting was that night. I printed the carrier tracking page with the front desk/reception line highlighted. I printed my email warning them about the delivery. I printed the GPS report with the little trail of pings disappearing off HOA property. Morales exported clean stills. Driver at desk. Guard lifting the box. Guard entering the staff door. All of it went into the thin black folder. I'll sit in the back, Morales said. You don't need me yet. Let them talk. Let Marla brag about excellent security and how they never handle packages. Smile. Take notes. And when they open the floor, she tapped the folder. That's when you ask, very sweetly, why a box that was never touched by security managed to walk itself off the property. When they scheduled that security and budget review meeting, she added, they thought they were tightening the leash on you. They have no idea they just volunteered for their own on-camera confession. The clubhouse meeting room was already half full when I walked in with that thin black folder under my arm. Fluorescents humming, coffee in a giant urn, neighbors in folding chairs scrolling on their phones. Up front, the projector glowed with the HOA logo and the words, Security and Budget Review. Marla stood at the podium in her expensive athleisure, hair perfect, smile sharper than the mic stand. Good evening, neighbors, she began. I'm proud to report that our security incidents are down 30% year over year. Our vendor has done an excellent job keeping this community safe. I spotted Morales in the back row. Plain blazer, notebook on her lap, just another bored resident. She gave the tiniest nod. Marla clicked to a slide of bullet points. And again, to address recent chatter, security does not handle residents' packages. If something goes missing, that is between you and your carrier. There it was. On the record. She talked for another 20 minutes, graphs, patrol hours, budget lines for enhanced monitoring. A couple of her fans clapped at every pause. When she finally said, "Any questions?" her eyes swept the room like she already knew who she was going to ignore. I raised my hand. A little ripple went through the chairs. She saw it. Her smile tightened. "Yes, Selena," she said into the mic. "Please keep it brief. We have a long agenda." I stood, folder in hand.
Sure.
I just have a couple of clarifying questions about package handling, since you brought it up. Soft snickers from the front row. Marla leaned on the podium. As I said, security does not handle packages. That's a carrier issue. Right, I said. I heard you. For the minutes, can you please confirm that security is not authorized to accept, move, or store resident packages at any point? The secretary glanced up, pen hovering. Marla hesitated, then said, slow and clear, "Security is not responsible for residents' packages. Full stop." "Great," I said, "because I'd like to walk through one specific delivery from this afternoon." A murmur. Someone whispered, "Oh boy." I opened my folder and pulled out the first page, a printout of the tracking for the Bluetooth speaker. At 1:27 p.m. Today, UPS scanned a package for my address as delivered front desk/reception.
Correct?
Marla's smile didn't move. If that's what your app says, then yes, that's between you and UPS. Interesting, I said. Because per your policy, the only front desk in this community is the security desk at the clubhouse. I turned slightly to the room. You all got that PDF too? A few nods. Someone in the second row muttered, "Yeah, we did." So, I continued. Carrier says front desk, policy says front desk is security, and you've just confirmed security doesn't handle packages.
Perfect.
That's why I brought visuals. I walked to the side table where the laptop for the projector sat. The board treasurer frowned. "What are you doing?" "Using the resident presentation slot you advertised," I said calmly. I emailed these in advance for the record. Morales had made sure of that. I clicked the trackpad. The HOA logo vanished, replaced by a still from their own exterior camera. UPS driver at the clubhouse door, brown box in hand. Timestamp: 1:26 and 48 seconds p.m. The room went very quiet. "This," I said, "is the UPS driver entering the clubhouse with my package." He walks to the front desk, scans it, and leaves. So far, everyone's following policy. I hit play. The clip ran: driver in, driver out, empty lobby, box on the desk.
Click.
Next clip. Same lobby, 5 minutes later. Security guard entering frame, glancing at the box. I heard the guard himself, 2 rows behind me, suck in a breath. "This," I narrated, "is the same security staff who told me on the phone and in writing that they don't handle packages. Watch his hands." On screen, he picked up the box, checked the label, and walked it down the hallway toward the staff door. "Now," I said, flipping to the next image, "this is a location map from the GPS tracker legally placed inside that box with a vendor's assistance." A simple graphic appeared, moving from the front desk to the staff-only corridor, then to the employee exit at the back. The box never went to a locker. It never came to my house. It went into a staff-only hallway, sat there, then walked off property after shift change. A woman near the front gasped. Someone whispered, "No way." Marla's face had gone a shade paler under the projector light. "This is highly misleading," she said quickly. "You can't just—" "Misleading," I repeated. I clicked again. A still image filled the screen. Guard at the staff door, box under his arm, HOA logo on his shirt clear as day. "You just told this room for the minutes that security does not handle packages," I said, keeping my voice even. "Your own cameras show security lifting a package from the front desk and taking it into a non-resident area from which it never reappears. UPS records show, delivered, front desk. My email to you this morning warned you it was coming and asked you to ensure policy compliance." I held up the paper. "And this is the $250 fine you sent me for delivery misuse on a different package UPS also marked left with security." Eyes snapped to the fine notice. A man in the back said, "Wait, they fined you?" Marla gripped the podium. "You're taking internal security procedures out of context. That package could have been moved for safekeeping. You have no proof of theft." "That's a great point," I said. "Which is why I hired an independent licensed investigator to review all this." I glanced at Morales. "She's been tracking that box since it left the electronics store. Would you like to explain to her, and to UPS, why your excellent security moved it off-site?" Several heads turned toward Morales. She raised a hand slightly, professional, calm. "For the record," she said, "the movement logs and timestamps from the tracker match your camera footage. If this was safekeeping, there should be an incident report and a chain of custody log. I requested both from your vendor this afternoon. They have none." The treasurer blurted, "No reports." Morales shook her head. "None they're willing to own, at least." Marla's carefully curated composure finally cracked. "This is not the place for accusations. Elena, you are harassing volunteers and staff. You had no right to install tracking devices. The tracker is on my property," I cut in a package addressed to me, "in full compliance with your policy. Your system touched it. Your system lost it. Your system fined me for asking questions." I let the silence hang, then added, "If you still want to insist, on the record, that security does not handle packages, I'm happy to play this again. Or we can, right now, pivot to the real question: why your security budget is paying people to walk residents' deliveries out the back door." A low murmur swelled into open chatter. Someone stood up and said loudly, "Yeah, I had a package vanish last month too." Another, "Same. Marla told me it was the carrier's fault." The secretary's pen was moving furiously. Marla's eyes darted between me, the screen, the room that was no longer under her spell. "We will investigate this internally," she said, voice brittle. "There is no need to dramatize." Morales spoke up, still calm. "Just so you're aware, I've already advised Ms. Park to file a formal theft report with APD and to forward your emails and this footage to the carrier's fraud department. They tend to take it very seriously when a property's representative denies handling packages while their cameras say otherwise. The word theft landed like a dropped weight. Marla swallowed. Let's move on to the next agenda item, she said weakly, fingers white on the podium. We'll revisit this after we've clarified things with our vendor. I closed my folder.
Of course, I said.
And I'll make sure to send you and the police copies of all this, so no one has to rely on memory. On the screen behind her, frozen in projector light, was the frame that started it all, her uniformed guard carrying my never-touched package into the staff hallway. But exposing the lie in that room was only the beginning. Because once the neighbors saw that clip, they stopped seeing me as the problem and started looking at Marla's beloved security budget like it was evidence. And hitting her in public reputation hurt. What came next hit where HOAs feel it most, in their contracts, in their power, and in their wallets. If you've ever wanted to stand up in a meeting and drop receipts like that, tell me in the comments what you would have said when that video froze on the screen, because the fallout from that night went way beyond one stolen box. The fallout started before I even made it home from that meeting. By the next morning, my inbox looked like I'd kicked a hornet's nest made of letterhead. First came the "We take these allegations seriously" email from the HOA account, suddenly very formal. They announced an internal review of security procedures and, almost as an afterthought in paragraph 3, that my $250 delivery misuse fine was being temporarily placed on hold pending clarification. Temporarily.
Cute.
I replied with one sentence. Please confirm in writing that notice of fine #2023-19 is rescinded in full and will not be sent to collections. 2 hours later, they caved. Rescinded appeared in black and white. I printed it and slid it into the folder. Next was an all-resident blast from Marla. Recent social media posts, she wrote, have created confusion about our trusted security vendor. We are pausing package handling at the clubhouse while we retrain staff. In the meantime, please pick up deliveries directly from carriers or use alternate locations. In one paragraph, she contradicted a month of "we don't handle packages" speeches. Neighbors started knocking. The older guy in the Longhorns hoodie from my first meeting shook my hand like I'd just won a championship. Knew something was off, he said. They try to say my grandson's birthday present never arrived. Think you just saved me a few $100. Jenna from next door texted me a screenshot of the Facebook group. The tone had flipped overnight. Wait, so security has been touching packages? Marla, you told me UPS was lying. Why weren't we told about this internal review before fines started? For once, Marla's replies were cautious. We are working with our vendor. Isolated incidents. Please direct questions to the board email. No more vague posts about fraudsters. No more subtweets about that area. Morales kept her foot on the gas. She helped me file a formal theft report with APD, attaching the footage, tracker logs, and the HOA emails where Marla insisted security never handled packages. UPS loss prevention team opened their own case and looped in FedEx and Amazon Logistics. Once carriers realize a gated property is a black hole, Morales said, they start protecting themselves. No company wants a security vendor turning their drivers into fall guys. Within a week, the security company's regional manager requested a meeting with the board. I only knew because the agenda leaked. Half the neighborhood suddenly cared very much about security contract, executive session. The very next day, a notice went up on the portal. Effective immediately, Lakeside Preserve HOA is suspending on-site security services pending contract review. Gatehouse will be staffed for access control only. No package acceptance permitted. Residents are advised to use carrier lockers and P.O. boxes until further notice. Translation: the guards were out of the package business and, soon, probably out of a job at Lakeside. The board called a special meeting to calm everyone down. I went, folder in hand, but I didn't have to say much. A line of angry residents did it for me. Why were we fined based on incidents that don't exist on paper? Why did you tell US security didn't touch packages when the contract says they must file reports about every incident? Are we getting reimbursed for what went missing? Under pressure, The treasurer finally admitted they were commissioning an independent audit of security-related finances and procedures. The phrase hung there like an indictment. Morales leaned over and whispered, "Audit means document preservation. They can't quietly shred this now." Within a month, the security contract was formally terminated for cause. The HOA announced a claims process. Anyone who'd had a package go missing in the last year could submit proof, and the HOA would either help recover from the carrier or reimburse part of the loss from a risk reserve fund. I watched Marla read that statement in front of the same projector she'd used to humiliate me. Her title slide had changed. No more security liaison. Just president. And even that sounded shakier, every meeting. Neighbors who used to fawn over her started sitting on the other side of the room. A recall petition quietly circulated. Someone slipped a copy into my mailbox with a sticky note. "Thought you'd want to see this." The best part? I never raised my voice. I never broke a rule. I followed their policy. I used their contract clause. I used their cameras. And every time they lied, I just said, "Great. Please confirm that in writing." From that night on, the HOA played defense, not offense. The fines stopped. The pattern of misuse language vanished from their form letters. And when packages showed up, carriers took photos, required signatures, and refused to leave anything at the clubhouse. The war over my cardboard boxes had turned into an audit of their entire security empire. A parterdali, a HOA nunca mais foi a mesma. But there was still one thing gnawing at me. Marla wasn't the type to surrender quietly. And the next envelope I got from the HOA's attorney proved she wasn't done trying to use policy as a weapon. If this story has you imagining your own HOA under a spotlight, hit the like button because their legal counterpunch was petty, creative, and just gave me another chance to comply in a way they really didn't expect. The envelope from the HOA attorney showed up like a bad joke, thick, off-white, my name typed in stiff Times New Roman. I opened it at the kitchen counter, half expecting another fine dressed up as policy. Instead, it was a 3-page letter accusing me of creating a hostile environment for volunteers and staff, misusing community resources, and, my favorite, improperly disseminating internal security footage. They didn't say the word lawsuit, but they dangled phrases like potential legal exposure and defamatory statements. Tucked at the end was the threat. If I continued distributing recordings without authorization, the board reserved the right to pursue further action. So after weeks of insisting nothing had happened, their first real move wasn't to apologize or fix it. It was to try and scare me back into silence. I read it twice, then a third time, highlighter in hand. They'd cited exactly 0 statutes. They'd conveniently ignored the part where I'd requested access to footage as a resident and where their own contract made incident reports a requirement. And the line about improperly disseminating security footage? I hadn't posted a single clip online. All I'd done was show it in a board meeting that was open to every dues-paying member. So I did what I always do when someone tries to weaponize vague legal language. I made them be specific. I forwarded the letter to Morales and to a consumer rights attorney a friend recommended. Morales called first. "They're bluffing," she said flatly. "If they really thought you'd broken a law, that letter would read very differently. This is reputation damage control dressed up as a warning." The attorney's email landed an hour later. He'd gone line by line, dropping comments in the margins. HOA cannot retroactively restrict residents from discussing matters raised in an open meeting. Your use of footage falls under member access to records and legitimate purpose. Ask them in writing to identify the exact authority in the CC and RS or state law that gives them power to sanction you for speaking about your own property losses. So I drafted one last boring, lethal email. "Dear Council and Board, I am in receipt of your letter dated date. For clarity and to ensure my continued compliance with all applicable rules, please identify 1. The specific provision in our CC and RS or bylaws that prohibits residents from referencing materials presented in an open board meeting. 2. The statutory authority under Texas law that gives the HOA power to restrict a member from discussing their own property losses and interactions with association vendors. 3. Any board resolution adopted prior to board meeting date, that limits members' access to or discussion of security incident records involving their address. Once I have this information, I will, as always, ensure full compliance. Best. Elena Park, 34B. I read it out loud, tweaking a word here and there until it sounded exactly like what it was: malicious compliance in legalese. Then I hit send. Days passed. No reply. What I did get was nothing. No new fines. No new friendly reminders. The HOA Facebook group went quiet whenever my name came up. The next newsletter mentioned ongoing improvements to our security vendor oversight and a new resident package task force that, hilariously, several neighbors begged me to join. I politely declined. I was done doing free quality assurance for people who'd spent months calling me a problem. The recall petition gained traction. A few weeks later, Marla sent out a polished resignation email citing family health reasons and a desire to spend more time focusing on positive community events. There was no mention of stolen packages, terminated contracts, or the night she told a room full of people that security never touched deliveries while her own cameras said otherwise. But people remembered. The new interim board quietly rewrote the package policy. Clear locker procedures. No fines tied to carrier behavior. A requirement that any security vendor maintain auditable logs and incident reports accessible to residents upon request. They even added the exact chain of custody language I'd quoted from their old contract. Neighbors I barely knew started waving again. Some dropped by with stories, how they'd been too nervous to speak up, how they'd assumed losing a box was just part of life now. One retired teacher summed it up perfectly over the mailbox one evening.
"You didn't yell," she said.
"You just kept asking the kind of questions that don't go away." That, more than getting my fine rescinded or watching Marla step down, felt like the real win. Not that I'd won against a HOA, but that the next person who had a package vanish in that neighborhood wouldn't be gaslit into thinking it was their fault. They'd know there was a process, a paper trail, a precedent. I still get my prescriptions delivered. I still screenshot my tracking more out of habit than fear. But now, when a carrier marks something as front desk/locker, there's an actual locker code and a clear log, and nobody at the gate dares say, "We don't handle packages," with a straight face. And that attorney letter? It's in the same thin black folder as everything else, highlighted, annotated, and filed under attempts to intimidate. If they ever do try anything, I have a full narrative ready for any judge, regulator, or reporter who wants to see how policy got turned into a shield for theft. That's the thing about people like Marla and the little empires they build out of PDFs and clipboards. They count on most of us being too busy, too tired, or too intimidated to read the fine print and push back. All I did was read it, follow it, and insist they live by the same rules they tried to use against me. In that neighborhood, the war with the HOA was over. But for those who know the system from the inside, they know there's always another committee president somewhere who thinks they're above the law. Subscribe to the channel and watch the